we're looking at the health and social care sector again today, but we're looking at learning outcome 2. Now, this learning outcome is, like I've just mentioned, it's got a lot of legislations that we'll be covering in here. So learning outcome 2 is investigate how current legislation and professional codes of practice impact on health and social care provision. So there's 3 assessment criteria, 2 for the pass and 1 for the merit. There's nothing in the distinction column here. So 2.1 is explain how current legislation impacts on health and social care provision in a chosen setting. 2.2, explain how the UK's care certificate standards can promote the best practice in the care sector. And then 2M1, explain the relationship between health values and care values. So let's make a start. Well, before we start, we're just going to look at what legislation is. Now, legislation is just a particular term that is used to describe what laws are, what sort of procedures there are, what sort of processes there are. Now, when we look at legislations, you'll be more familiar with the subshoots of the legislations. So all the policies and procedures that you've got within your workplace, they're adapted using those legislations. So they're adapted to reflect what you do. So if you work in a school setting, your legislation for health and safety will be adapted in accordance to what your common issues might be. In a care setting, you might have a different adaptation. And then in a hospital, it might be completely different. So they use the same concept, but they just adapt those main legislations to tweak to suit their own situations and their own settings. So legislations, these laws that are made, are there so that everybody in the society, everybody knows exactly what behaviors are acceptable and what is not. So the way this is reflected in your workplace, if you go in and there's a safeguarding policy, or there's a particular way that you're meant to approach your service users, you know how you can speak to them, how you're meant to treat them, what sort of service you're meant to give them. Everybody's on the same page. So legislations really are very useful to making sure you know exactly what you're doing. So in regard to healthcare, why is legislation important? So policies, like I've just mentioned, in healthcare are really important. It gives you that focus, it gives you that general idea, that plan of action, where you know exactly what you need to do. It sets guidelines, it helps you to make decisions. You know exactly what is acceptable within your workplace and what isn't.
Please hold.
And then you have what is the purpose of legislation in health and social care? So there's different purposes for this. Now, one of the ones within health and social care is that it can influence dignity. Equality and diversity will come into a lot within health and social care, and you'll be quite familiar if you're working within a setting at the moment as well. So for dignity, you're going to look at your living conditions. So are the care homes up to standard? Do you have a decent living condition? Do you have hot water, heat? Have they got the amenities that should be accessible? So all of these are governed by a whole load of regulations. Now, we talked about the CQC yesterday, so the Care Quality Commission. So they're a regulator. They're there to make sure that what needs to be done is being done. They're independent. Now, the CQC has actually published guidance for the compliance with essential standards of quality and safety. So they're there, they've put a standard out saying this is what you need to do and this is what should be followed. So that was a little bit about what legislation is.
I don't know which one it is.
Hi, I've just got somebody with a bit of a noisy background. If you could mute for a moment. Thank you. So we're going on to 2.1. So remember, please ask questions, unmute yourself, ask what you need to do, and then you're very welcome to. So 2.1, explain how current legislation impacts on health and social care provision in a chosen setting. So we're going to look at the NHS as an example again, like we did yesterday. But yesterday we looked at the structure of the NHS, how it came about and how it's developed. Today we're going to look at it in regards to legislations. So you might be aware of the Health and Social Care Act of 2012. So this actually introduced the first legal duties about health inequalities. So it gave specific duties for health bodies, including the Department of Health, Public Health England, and clinic and commissioning groups, and then also the NHS England, and it gave them a set of rules in a way, set of guidelines in a way that they have to use, that they need to regard to reduce health inequalities. So this act also brought about a lot of changes for local authorities about public health functions. Now we go on to the Equality Act of 2010. So this is a very important act. It established equality duties for all of the public sector, and its aim is to integrate every diversity, every culture within the healthcare, to be honest, is there to take in consideration of all different types of people, different types of, just to make sure that everybody's needs and requirements are being met, so that there's equality in day-to-day business that is happening. So it's equality within colleagues and staff. There's equality for patients to make sure that everybody's dignity and diversity and all their needs are being met, regardless of where they come from, how they talk, what language that they speak. Then we've got this Social Value Act, and this came about in 2012. So this requires all public sector commissioners, including local authorities and health sector bodies, to consider the economic and social and environmental well-being when it's doing its services. So it creates a social value, it has clear connections, and it is doing efforts to reduce health inequalities through action on determinants of health. For example, they're trying to improve employment and housing. So it's not just to do with the health sector itself, it's to do with all sectors within the local authority. So the Social Value Act of 2012 has a lot of social determinants of health, and it can help to reduce local inequalities. If you're getting good employment, you're able to earn a wage for yourself. You're able to afford to pay your rent or to purchase a house. It can have good effects on your health. You're in a warm, clean environment. You're able to put food on your table. So it really works as an all-rounder here. And by doing this, it helps you to reduce demand on health services. So it'll help to give a good living wage, so you're able to eat healthier. It might even hopefully get rid of homelessness. I know it's a big issue, but it could go towards helping towards that. And then that will have a knock-on effect that health services or any other services, social care services, are not being used as much because this plan is in place. Then we've got the Health and Safety at Work Act, and this was brought about in 1974. And this just tells employees, employers, self-employed people, just what the way is to work in a safe way, what sort of legal duties they've got, what sort of care they need to give to anybody that works within a particular setting. So if you've got a care home, you've got patients, family members, care staff, colleagues, admin staff, everybody that's working there. It's the legal duty within the owners of that, for the management of that setting, to make sure that the people, everybody that walks in is safe. So it gives you a very good guideline of exactly what needs to be done to maintain safety or to reduce any issues. Then we've got RIDDOR, which you might have heard of, which is Reporting of Injuries, Diseases and Dangerous Occurrence, Regulations 2013. It's easier to say RIDDOR. So this actually helps you to set in place where you're reporting accidents or any incidents that happen within your setting. So this is for things that might be quite serious. So if you've gone into work and you were closing down the clinic and the shutter falls on your back, hopefully that never happens to anyone, but if ever it does, then you know that this needs to be reported to RIDDOR. If you go in and you fall down the stairs and you break a leg, that gets reported to RIDDOR. Anything minor, like if you cut a finger or you got a little bump or a bruise or you slipped and you're okay, those are just for your accident report forms within your setting. This is for serious issues. If there's a disease outbreak within your workplace, you'd report that to RIDOR as well. Is everybody okay with what I'm going over so far? Anybody got any questions?
No, thank you.
Okay, fantastic. And then we've got the Management of Health and Safety at Work regulations. This came about in 1999, and it just tells you how health and safety should be managed in care. Morning, Athe.
Hello, good morning. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's okay, Athe, no problem.
Yeah, thank you.
You missed a part of 2.1, but we're still within it. We're just talking about legislations.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. So as I was saying, this act here is just to help you how to manage health and safety in your workplace. It's how you carry out risk assessments. It's to make sure that you're getting the correct training, and it's to make sure that every employee gets the right information that they need. So if there's been a policy change, you need to make sure, your management need to make sure that you get that change given to you, get it emailed to you, make sure that you've read it. So this is there. Then you've got the regulatory reform. This is for fire safety. Now, it sets out how the workplace needs to prevent or protect against fire. So you'll notice you'll have extinguishers around your workplace. You'll have little alarm bells that you can do. There's a whole, might even have regular fire alarm tests carried out where you go out into this to the fire safety areas and just make sure you know exactly what the processes are. Mm-hmm. Then you've got COSH, which is Control of Substances Hazardous to Health Regulations, 2002. So these are designed to help people, protect people from hazardous substances, so anything that might cause you harm or ill health. Now, COSH is also there to make sure, so if you're working within an environment where you know that anybody can access particular cleaning products, or it really depends. It doesn't even matter where it is. It could be a school, it could be a hospital, it could be a care house. If you know that there's an area where you're going to be using cleaning equipment, most likely you have like a closet or an area which is lockable that you can store every single cleaning item in there to make sure that it doesn't get into anybody's hands. So that is one of the procedures that have come about from COSH for within your workplace. Then you have the Manual Handling Operations Regulations, 1992. And these just tell you how you should load things and how you should carry items, especially heavy items, how many people it should take to carry particular things. So it just helps you to do things safely and to hopefully prevent any type of an injury. Like I said, we've got a lot of legislation today, so we've got another 2 slides of these. So the provision and use of work equipment regulations, so PUWER of 2002. So it just sets out that any type of equipment that you use needs to be used safely. So it needs to be checked, it needs to be maintained regularly. The employers need to make sure that it's used safely and that they're trained to do that. So any equipment that you have in healthcare can be anything, to be honest. It can be lifting aids, it can be TVs, remote controls, telephones, laptops. When you go into work, or if you go into an environment where, if you just turn over your laptop or you turn over the phone, you'll notice there's a little white sticker on it which will say something like electrical and have a date when it's been checked. So anything that you use that is electrical, simply down to a phone or a laptop or an iPad. What workplaces do to make sure that they're up to standard, they'll check them regularly, so maybe every 6 months, maybe every 12 months. So when you do get a chance, just have a quick look. Turn one of your pieces of equipment over and see if they've got one of those little stickers on, just to show that this is what is being done. And then finally on this, we've got an example. So I'm just going to read through this. So a care home in South Lanarkshire was fined for breach of Section 3 of the Health and Safety at Work Act 1974. So following the death of Mrs. Elizabeth Stevenson, who was 88, Mrs. Stevenson broke her neck in a fall. Bupa Care Homes in Carrick Limited admitted to failing to review and update a risk assessment for Mrs. Stevenson and failing to provide adequate instruction and supervision to their employees engaged in moving and handling the residents. So this would cover the Health and Safety Executive of 2012. Now, Essex County Council, another example. So before I go into that, so what happened is in a Bupa care home, an elderly lady was being moved. The staff didn't have the right training in how to move her according to her own needs. She fell down the stairs, she broke her neck, and unfortunately she passed. So Bupa care homes were found to be at fault for this because they didn't follow the correct procedures, they didn't inform their staff, they didn't give them the correct training in how to move her or how to handle her. So they were at fault here. So another example is Essex County Council was prosecuted after a child with severe learning and physical disabilities almost drowned in his school's swimming pool. The council had failed to provide schools with adequate information and guidance on how to safely manage and run their swimming pools. So another example of the health and safety executive not being followed. So this section was 2.1. Does anybody have anything to add or any questions they'd like to ask? I'm going to take your silence for either you've all fallen asleep or you're amazingly impressed.
No, we're not asleep. We're not asleep.
That's good, that's good.
So basically, we're learning the laws that guide on operations of how we get the work of the environment done.
Yes.
So we get the gist.
Well, I'm glad you're all still here. So let's go on to 2.2. Explain how the UK's care certificate standards can promote best practice in the care sector. Now, you'll be happy to know this is a little short one, so we're not going to go through a lot of legislations now. So, depending on if we're aware of it or not, we all live our everyday lives set by a set of values. So, they help shape us, they help us to react. Now, these might be cultural values, it might be environmental values. I know that the way that I interact with my family members is based on my culture. Within my culture, we're very reverent towards elderly people. So my mother, my father, any elderly people that I'll see on the street, we will, greet them. We'll be very respectful. Whether or not you agree with something they say, you won't outright argue with them. Now, environment-wise, there's a set of cultures that I follow as well. So when I'm in work, there's a set of standards that I use. There's a set of way that I'll speak to people, and there's a way that what your guidelines are and what your rules are. So you know exactly what you can and cannot do. So really, it depends on where you are at that particular time. But again, it all comes down that we all live by a set of values, and it helps to shape us, and it also helps us about how we think and how we react. Now, these values are beliefs and ideas about how people should behave, and they've been formed, like I said, from our cultures, our childhoods, our families, our backgrounds, our religious educations, and even our relationships. So values are a very big part of what makes you, you. So when we come to values, within health and social care, values are central to care. And now some principles have actually already been set that guide workers to understand right from wrong, and also to help you when you're caring and supporting people. Now, there's 6 values here, and I'm pretty sure that you'll have come across these. Even if you've never heard of the 6 C's, you'll probably end up doing it on a normal basis with your patients, with your colleagues, with your family members. You'll probably already be doing these. So the 6 C's is what they're known as. They are care, compassion, competence, communication, courage, and commitment. So care is having their best interests at heart and doing what you can to maintain or improve their well-being. Compassion is being able to feel for someone and to understand them and their situation. Competence is to understand what someone needs and have the knowledge and skills to provide it. Communication is to listen carefully, but also be able to speak and act in a way that the person can understand. So communication, that actually comes into you adapting the way you talk. So if you talk to a young child, you're not going to give them really big words or try and scare them with the official jargon. You're going to adapt the way you talk to them, and you're probably going to give them easier and easy to understand language or words. With somebody who's a colleague of yours, you might be able to tell them all the key terminology and give them all the big words and use jargon and acronyms with them because they're going to understand. So you really do adapt depending on who you're talking to. Then you've got courage. So your courage is not to have fear to try anything new, and also say, if you're worried about something, to say, yeah, I'm worried about this particular thing, or I'm not confident about doing this procedure or looking after this patient on my own. You've got the courage to speak up for yourself or speak up for your patient. And then commitment. So to be dedicated to providing care and support, but also understanding the responsibility you have as a worker. So this gets covered, this is the 6 C's, and these are the values within healthcare. So has anybody got any questions in regards to 2.2?
No, for me. No.
Okay.
No.
Fantastic. Let's go on. So the last section in this, 2M1, this is a merit question. So explain the relationship between health values and care values. So in this section, it's quite simple. When you get onto the question, all you've got to do is have a table. One section will be you talking about what care values are, and one section will be you telling me about what health values are. And now we'll just actually cover what these are. So what are health values in the NHS? So you've got patients, public and staff, and this has helped to develop the expression of values that inspire the NHS. And they also underpin every single thing that happens within the NHS. So any individual organizations will also build upon these values, and they tailor them or tweak them depending on what their needs are. Now, the values are here. So working together for patients, compassion, respect and dignity, improving lives, commitment to quality of care, and everybody counts. Then values, like we said earlier, everybody's got their own needs, everybody's got their own thoughts, and everybody's got a set of values that they're shaped from and that they follow. So if my values are different from yours, it doesn't mean that I'm better or you're better. We're all equal. We're all there. It doesn't depend on whether you share the same values as your patients or your colleagues. You're there to follow a set of procedures, a set of guidelines, and to treat them in a way that shows compassion and dignity, regardless of whether or not you believe in the same things. Now, for those of you who have done person-centered care, you know and be very familiar with how big values and person is within healthcare. For the ladies that have just joined, we'll be going on to that soon, but you'll still be able to learn the same things here again. So person-centered values are here. So they're just guiding principles that help you to put interests of every individual that receives your care or support at the center of everything. So person-centered care is you putting that person right in the center. They're the main focus. So everything that you do is to help them, is to make sure that their health and their needs are being met. So examples of this is to make sure that their individuality, independence, partnership, privacy, choice, dignity, and respects and rights are being met. So you have health values in this slide here, and then you've got care values here. So they're quite similar, to be honest. Now, we'll go on to working together for patients. So when we work together, we know that everything that we do is to make sure that we're looking after our patients, looking after the people that are within our care. So we fully involve patients, staff, families, carers, communities and professionals that are in the NHS and maybe even out of the NHS. So this might include police, social services, educationalists, so schools, colleges, anybody that needs to be within that person's care. So we put the needs of the patients and the communities for organisational boundaries. And it's also our duty to speak up when things go wrong. Now, I would play this, but with every single lesson that I do, we have an issue with audio. So I can hear the video, but you can't. So if you get a chance, please go on to slide 14 and just click on this video. It just gives you a nice few-minute video just telling you what how we work together for patients. And then compassion. So we make sure that we're compassionate. It's central to our care, and it shows how we respond. So we show humanity and kindness to each people. So especially when they're in pain or upset or in distress, they might be anxious. They might really just not want to be there and want to be at home. But for their health-wise, they need to be there. So we're there to give them compassion that we know will comfort them. And it's not just patients. You're going to be being compassionate towards family members as well. So that's a big thing. It's a very big job when you're working in healthcare. So you're not just looking after the patient, but you're looking after all the family members that come. They're concerned, they're upset, they really want to make sure that the person that's being cared for is looked after. So it's really your job to make sure that you're assuring them. Respect and dignity. So we value every single person. So whether it's the patient, their families, your colleagues, anybody that works, does not matter on what their position is. They can be at the top of the management chain or they can be a cleaner at the work. Everybody is equal. We are there to give them the respect and dignity. It's not our job to look down on anyone or even look up at anyone. So it helps you to, give respect and dignity because everybody is individual. Respect their aspirations. They might have thoughts and wishes. Respect their commitments. Try and understand what their priorities are, what their needs are, and what abilities they have. And also respect what limits they have. So if they're saying, no, I can't do this, or I don't want a male carer to work for me, to look after me, or I'm not comfortable with a female carer giving me personal care. You need to respect what their own thoughts and wishes are. Improving lives. So we strive to improve health and well-being, and also the different people that come into healthcare, their experiences. So we cherish excellence and professionalism in every single thing that is done in people's lives, and then it's put within your service that you do every single day. So you're always working to improve yourself, to working to give your service users a good experience. Then commitment to quality of care. So we earn the trust placed in us by insisting on quality and striving to get the basics of quality of care. So you've got safety, effectiveness, you've got patient experience, and you're there in work every single day. You're making sure that you're giving everybody a good quality of care, that you're meeting their needs and requirements, you're giving them respect, you're giving them dignity and privacy, that you're there to look after them. Then everyone counts. We're almost at the end. So we maximize our resources for the benefit of the whole community and make sure that nobody is excluded or discriminated against or left behind. And in some situations, there are some people that will need more help, and there are some difficult decisions that might need to be made for those people. But they have a right to care, so it's there to make sure that they're getting looked after as well. And then what are the 6 care values? So examples of this is individuality. So we've already looked at this: independence, privacy, partnership, choice, dignity, respect and rights. So with individually, everybody has their own identity, needs and wishes. They've got their own beliefs and values. We don't approach it a one-size-fits-all technique. So not everybody is the same. You can't have a one-size-fits-all procedures or treatments for everyone. Everyone's different. They've got different needs. And then again, when you're looking at the care values, we've already looked at those, which were just previously in 2.2. So that's it for this slides here. I'm just going to turn the recording off, and then you're very welcome to talk through anything you'd like to.